And I have the honor to welcome our panelists today. But first I would like to tell a little bit of why we embarked on this panel together. Although the artistic research is very different in relation to the scientific world of research that is very precise and does not allow much liberty in form, similarities can be found as well. For example, we both have the passion to research the arts as well as to the arts, and this should bring us together more than separate us. So we have, together with Eveliina Sumelius-Lindblom from DocMus Doctoral School, tried to find those similarities today. And fourths, uniting those two significant doctoral schools at the Sibelius-Akatemia. And we have founded a joint panel to discuss the future of the two schools in terms of international careers, paths and funding, as not all the students graduating will follow a domestic career here in Finland. So I would like to present shortly Eveliina. Eveliina Sumelius-Lindblom is a concert pianist and a scholar holding a 3-year doctoral research salaried position here in the Uni Arts of Sibelius-Akatemia. In her artistic research and interdisciplinary studies, in her doctoral project, she brings together rigorous scientific research and pianist's career. She has published articles in leading international journals as part of her doctoral thesis for Sibelius-Akatemia. So, welcome, Eveliina.
Thank you. Thank you, Hanna. And it's really nice to be here without a piano, sitting relaxed. So the idea for this session came up spontaneously during the first morning coffee session between DocMus and MuTri students and staff last November. As old high school friends with Hanna and current postgraduate colleagues, we have noticed that even if we come from different doctoral schools representing different research traditions, and we have different kind of professional aspirations, we still share the same joys and worries considering our prospective academic future. We have both recognized that time runs, and simultaneously with advancing the ongoing research in our research boxes, we should not only to trust on the becoming good luck, but also put some conscious effort on several factors which frame the research substance and are supportive for building more sustainable short-term and long-term career plans. To find out what kind of aspects we should take into account when making these plans, we have invited specialists from different sectors of academic world and the EU field. Our quests are here to share their expertise and knowledge considering international career prospects and different prospects of funding. Even if the academic world is full of perfectionism, competition, evaluation, and so on, we hope with Hanna that this inspiring conversation today would encourage and inspire every doctoral student to think big, in other words, to see their academic project in a new, internationally groundbreaking light. And next I will introduce our prominent panelists of today. And dear panelists, if you want to add something to my introductions, please do it. First, I'd like to welcome Tanja Johansson. Thank you for your fantastic keynote speech. She's a professor in arts management and head of MuTri Doctoral School. She has worked in 3 different EU-funded projects and is also a board member of a European network on cultural management and policy. Welcome. And then we have Saara Harjula, Master of Political Science. She's a Deputy Head of Office at the Helsinki EU Office in Brussels. Welcome. And Guadalupe López Íñiguez, a Spanish cellist and interdisciplinary researcher based in Finland. She holds a PhD in psychology and a master's degree in classical music performance from the Sibelius-Akatemia of the University of the Arts, Helsinki, among other postgraduate diplomas in musicology and education. And then we have Sanna Kivijärvi. Welcome. She is a doctoral researcher in music education at MuTri Doctoral School and lecturer of music education at Sibelius-Akatemia. At the end of last year, Sanna was awarded by a Fulbright scholarship to attend Columbia University, New York, as a visiting researcher during this academic year. So you're warmly welcome, and Hanna will continue now.
Yes, and shortly about this panel. So we have first introduced our guests, then we will go through the individual questions we have prepared with Eveliina for all the panelists and specialists today. Then we will conclude by general questions, which lead more specifically into funding and international career topics. And in the end, you, the audience, will have a chance, of course, to ask all our specialists about questions regarding perhaps your own paths as doctoral students or in general in funding in the arts in future. So let's begin. And first I would like to address a question for Saara. Welcome, Saara. What kind of opportunities do you see for the internationalization of doctoral and post-doctoral students in the EU at the moment?
Is this working?
Yes.
Yes, all right. Thank you for having me here in this all-female panel, I have to say. I work in Brussels. It's quite a conservative working environment, and this doesn't happen that often. As you kindly introduced, I'm the deputy head of the Helsinki office and representing your university as well as the University of Helsinki and Aalto University and Hanken. At the EU level, mostly it means that I am a lobbyist and trying to influence the EU's Research and Innovation Framework Programme and the topics in it to them to be more in line with the research done in my universities here in Helsinki. But thank you for the question. Maybe a couple of remarks about internationalization. I think it shouldn't be an objective itself, but more an instrument to improve research. It has been seen in many studies that cross-sectoral, cross-border, or cross-disciplinary collaboration increases the quality of the research, the impact of the research, and of course the diversity. And another point, whether we are talking about climate change or migration or the chronic unemployment or the aging population of the Europe, today's grand challenges or global challenges are really too complex and too horizontal, and no researcher alone, no university alone, or no one discipline or one country can tackle them alone. So that's why we need international collaboration. And from the EU's point of view, to have this collaboration and to tackle these grand challenges, which in some cases need to be tackled quite urgently, we will need many more trained researchers and really a powerful EU science base to do this. But concretely, what the EU can provide for doctoral students or postdocs, I would say that there are three main programs, which maybe the first is the most well-known Erasmus Plus program, which is not only to bachelor or master degree level students, but also to doctoral students. The exchanges varies from 3 months to 1 year, and it's not about only mobility. People always tend to think that Erasmus is it's about only of exchange of going abroad. It's also about skills and capacity building. So there are a lot of opportunities. What is really nice to see is that now at the EU level we are already preparing the next programming period, which is starting in 2021. And one of the programs which is having more finance for the next period is Erasmus Plus. The European Commission wants to double the budget, and actually the European Parliament wants to triple the budget. So there is more finance in that program to come. And what is and really my favorite child of all the EU programs, and the one I'm lobbying the most, is the EU's Research and Innovation Framework Program, Horizon 2020. The next one is called Horizon Europe, starting at 2021. And for individual researchers, for their training and career development, money-wise, there is more than 6 billion euros during this 7-year period allocated, and maybe the suitable ones for doctoral students and postdocs are, of course, the Maria Sklodowska-Curie actions that support researchers at all stages of their careers, all nationality, of all age. It's a nice program because it's bottom up, so there are no topics or explicit calls, and it is grant-based. There are a lot of actions, and because I only have 5 minutes, and I don't know if I've already passed them, I won't go through them one by one. But there is the aspect of mobility as well, but there is also the aspect of improving your own career. It's about also collaboration between the academia and the industry. So it's quite an interesting and important instrument. The other one, which is more for early career top researchers, is the ERC, of course, which is a well-known excellence-based science label. If you get the ERC grant, it is not only in Europe that is well-known, it's well-known internationally. And there are different grants depending where you are at the in your career, but the starting grant, which is to young early career top researchers, is for people, let's say, starting from 2 years up until 7 years after they have finished their PhD. And money for the ERC grants is quite big. The finance is more or less 1.5 million euros. It's for 5 years. And then maybe last, I don't know if it's well known in Finland, it's the Creative Europe program. This is more to create the infrastructures, to create the networks, so not that much of the research side. It's about supporting the mobility of artists and cultural professionals, about creating the best possible conditions at the EU level and internationally for artists and cultural professionals. Yeah, maybe.
Very good. Thank you, Saara. And I was going to ask you, on the one hand, from the student side, but you actually articulated it so well that there are several programs that could serve for individual students in doctoral and postdoctoral phases. So thank you. And then we would move to, at this point, to Tanja. Tanja, what kind of initiatives do you find relevant today in relation to EU funding from the Sibelius-Akatemia side? That is the University of the Arts Doctoral School, DocMus and MuTri, if you want to elaborate, but from the performing arts side.
I think that was a very good introduction to different types of EU funding, because in our everyday language we tend to say or talk about just EU funding. And as you elaborated, there are a lot of different types of funding for individuals and for groups, for research and for more developmental projects. And I think that that would be something that we could perhaps teach and discuss a bit more. I'm not sure whether that would be a course on EU funding, but at least for me, it feels that perhaps that is needed, or some kind of seminar about that, because there are so many opportunities within EU funding. So that would be one thing, just to be knowledgeable about the different possibilities. And then I'm not saying that you first look at the funding opportunities. I think the research topic and your interest comes first. But when you are creating research topics, particular for the postdoc research, then it's good to have an idea of what type of funding could fit to your research topic and research questions. Whether it makes sense to have a research group with different universities in different countries and have more development project, for instance, in some pedagogical development or something like that. Or do you want to go for ERC funding, the starting grants, for instance, because your research topic and questions fits to that type of funding. So I think that would be one thing that we could develop so that our people would have an understanding of the variety of EU funding. Then I would also encourage people to look at different opportunities that European networks, there are a lot of that type of networks, so get involved with those. I think there are many type of networks. For instance, in my field, there is this European network on cultural management and policy, but I'm sure there's networks for artistic research and performance studies and pedagogical development and all kinds of things. So those are places where you meet people. They have usually annual conferences, but there might be an opportunity to get into their boards. So that's what I have enjoyed being in one of those boards, is that then you start to see the European level of research and development in a very different way. I think it becomes closer and more concrete what you can do in a European level. And of course meet new people and perhaps find partners for research project in the future. So don't be afraid of going to that kind of places and aiming for that kind of collaboration.
Very good answer. Thank you, Tanja. Yes, it's an important thing that we as doctoral students, as discussed with Eveliina, that we take the initiative. For example, we have taken the initiative today to invite you all and to make connections between the EU office, between the university, between Fulbright, that we will soon talk about. And my next question I would like to ask is for Guadalupe. Hello. Guadalupe, you have a career both in the arts and science, right? How do you see in this context your career in relation to funding, or what kind of advice could you give perhaps to our students from your broad perspective as recipient of funding from both the arts and science? How do you feel?
Well, hello everybody, and thank you Eveliina and Hanna for inviting me, and also being a foreigner, I am very happy to be here, because it represents the diversity of our university, so thanks a lot for this, and I'm very glad to share the all-female panel. I don't come from Brussels, but I come from a patriarchal context, so I'm really happy to be here with Tanja, Sanna and Saara as well.
Excellent point.
Yes. So my focus is in the artistic and scientific arena, and this involves a holistic understanding of the research related to music performance from wide perspectives like performance psychology, and the wide learning sciences. I want to set a little bit the context before I get into the funding. Also artistic research stemming from my own praxis, the pedagogy behind performance, the acquisition of musical knowledge at different levels, aiming for the encouragement of alternative and constructivist pedagogical models for specifically classical musicians. or the use of historically informed approaches to performance in relation to metacognition. I am also, as they have said before, a professional cellist focusing on period instruments and a recording artist who has had a 10 years performance break to engage in the psychology of music education. And now I combine both roles. So my career in relation to funding for both artistic and scientific work has been dependent entirely on the funding I got, and also on some extra freelance work. Without the funding received, it would have simply been impossible. For my research, I have been lucky in getting 3 major funding opportunities, 2 for postdoctoral studies, 3 years by the Kone Foundation for Artistic Research, and currently 3 years by the Finnish Academy, Sumelius-Akatemia, for more scientific academic research. And I also got 1 for my doctoral studies in Spain by I+D+I, which is similar to Sumelius-Akatemia in Finland. These 3 grants cover in total 10 years of full-time research work. And these particular funding opportunities were highly competed ones, and I managed to be among the 6% of those who applied and were successful. And there is a lack part here, but there is also some other issues connected to me receiving this funding, which I will explain soon. So the only period when I did not get funding in between these grants was when I was on maternity leave. Though I was applying really hard and I did not get the funding, but I guess the hormonal stage can explain my brain functioning a little bit different than usual. So in addition, I have also got several smaller funding opportunities for travel, language expenses, and acquisition of research materials. For instance, at the Sibelius-Akatemia, SERADA, Arts Equal Research Initiative, the Center for Artistic Research, and as well as different funding bodies in Spain and the United Kingdom. I have also worked as a collaborator or active researcher in 4 major collaborative projects in Europe related to the psychology of learning and arts education, which have been also helpful to develop collaborative skills, which are crucial if you want to have a long-term career as a researcher. For artistic work, I have got several smaller funding opportunities supporting concerts and recordings, for example, and I have also got a private company supporting me with with the use of different musical instruments for my artistic development. The value of these particular loans is, of course, difficult to estimate. In addition, my career at this stage, even though we are focusing today on doctoral or postdoctoral studies, I want to mention that this stage I have reached now could not be explained without talking about the stages prior to postdoc and doc life. So all my bachelor's and master's or postgraduate diplomas in different fields have been fully funded as well with academic and artistic grants. I could have not even studied at the undergrad level without funding, and especially without working as an hourly paid cello teacher, solfege, music movement, and you just name it, or in petrol stations during the summer, or picking up grapes and olives in the autumn and winter in Spain. So that is the reality of the funding and what is behind what I'm doing at the moment. My advice, now getting to your question finally, for those who, like me, come from a humble background but want to become researchers or artists researchers, is to keep, first of all, eyes and ears open for all possibilities which might support your dreams, but also listen to those who know more than you. Whenever there is a hand helping you, be thankful. And remember to do the same whenever someone in a lower, I don't like this word, but anyway, you understand the context, in a lower academic and artistic level needs and deserves help, as you did. But also you must be ready whenever there is this chance offered to you, so that you use it wisely to the best of your abilities, don't lose time. For example, when I got my PhD grant, my supervisor at the time told me that I had 2 possible paths. One, I could have an easy life and enjoy this easy money for 4 years, as some people do, become a doctor and stop there without much of advancing the field, because this is after all the main aim, if you want to be a researcher. Or 2, I could work hard and advance my career so that I could provide myself with further opportunities and truly promote the necessary change that I was looking for in the psychology of music education and music performance. I, of course, follow the second route, as well as I could, of course. It is also important, one more advice, to not react negatively when you do not get the grants. even after repeated trials. I have been there myself. In the same way, if an article is rejected or if you get a nasty critic after a concert or a recording, keep calm and try to learn from the situation with a critical mindset. If you think you could have done better, just work harder and acknowledge they are right. And if not, stand up and clean the dust off your shoulders and simply go on, follow your passion. You should keep on applying all the time for both artistic and scientific funding, whatever you are doing, both maybe. But do not send, please, applications which are not well prepared or that they don't follow the call, because they might remember you next time. And follow the specific goals, requirements. Maybe a couple of more points. Maybe the most important advice is to surround yourself, this is important, to surround yourself with great and generous minds, because this kind of work cannot be done alone. You can be successful only when others help you finding your strengths and passion, and also help you to polish and acknowledge, especially, your weaknesses with empathy and compassion. It is, of course, tricky to know who those fantastic minds are or where to find them. Maybe my studies in psychology have helped me there. But the last advice is that I also find incredibly useful to think about a long-term plan when it comes to research. For instance, when I started my doctoral training, I prepared with my supervisor's help an ideal 20 years research plan, including the things that interested me the most. Not 4 years for my PhD, 20. This helped me tremendously when preparing my grant applications, because I know what kind of path to follow, but also what I want to do, and especially what I do not want to do. You can always update this long-term plan. In the same way, teachers use the spiral curriculum idea. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Very fundamental answer. We will come to your best practice and advice later also, so please save some of those for our general questions too. Next one is Sanna Kivijärvi. Sanna, you are working currently in Arts Equal, for example. And my question for you is, since you have received a Fulbright scholar, is how do you see this process of the Fulbright in terms of funding from the perspective of a researcher in the doctoral phase?
Yes.
Was it easy?
No, it wasn't. I'm happy to be here. So at the end of last year, I was awarded by a Fulbright scholarship to attend Columbia University in New York. And this scholarship is for a 12-month period, and it is for the upcoming academic year, not for this year. So I could explain a little bit about the Fulbright application process, which differs quite a lot from the typical applications that are addressed to Finnish foundations. So the Fulbright Finland Foundation is a not-for-profit foundation like most Finnish foundations are, but well, it is funded by the US Department of State and the Finnish Ministry of Education and Culture. And what they offer is different scholarship from 2-week visits up to several year visits. And these scholarships or programs are for early and mid-career researchers mostly, but also they have programs for bachelor and master level students. And these different programs have different kind of requirements in their applications, but what combines all of them is that they are looking for cultural ambassadors who will build professional networks during their visits in addition to completing their research projects. This is the combining element. So my Fulbright period is as a visiting researcher, which means that I will focus on my own research project and focus on working with the faculty members at the Columbia University. And this means that I will not attend any courses like some doctoral candidates would do. And this also lowers the costs of my visit, since many US universities tend to have very high course fees. First of all, the visiting scholar application, it included a research proposal and a CV like typical applications do. But in addition, the requirement was that there should be 2 essays, one on the applicant's career plans and a personal statement. And another differing aspect is that the call required 2 impact narratives. And these impact narratives should address the research proposal and the visit itself. And then the application process required letters of recommendations. And the requirement was 4 letters, but as I discussed with previous Fulbright alumni, they said that, okay, 4 is enough, is not enough, you should have more. I have 6 letters of recommendations. And these letters are not 2-sentence letters, they are 2 pages letters. And this means that no one will write them for you. You have to write the drafts yourself and then ask if some kind professor would sign them for you. Then the review process continues so that there are 2 panels which will review the application. 1 panel on the scientific part and 1 panel on the essays and impact narratives and the letters of recommendations. And after which the selected applicants are invited to an interview. And this interview consists of 6 panel members, 3 from Finland and 3 from the United States. And these panel members do not necessarily represent your own specific field of interest. For instance, in my panel there were biology professors and professors of economics, so you cannot expect that there will be experts on your own field. What the interview contained, we discussed about my research proposal, of course, but we also discussed about the impact a lot, but also about, on a very detailed level, about the funding plan. Like, what will happen if something unexpected happens during the visit, like my computer collapses, or I will need some computer hardware, or some health issues, or whatever. So I think how I would summarize the whole process, it was about thinking big, but also thinking very small and very detailed issues.
Thank you. What a fascinating process it must have been, and congratulations once more. Well done. Okay, we would move now on to our last panelist and my co-moderator, Eveliina Sumelius-Lindblom. Eveliina, in your research you combine and create a new language between the arts, and that is at the same time scientifically top-notch research. First of all, how do you feel you do this? And second question is, what enables you to do this when you move between rigorous science and arts?
Thank you for the question. First of all, I think that the time seems to be acceptable for an artist, in my case for a performing pianist, to use her artistic experience as a primarily tool for research. I would argue that working as a kind of double agent, as I think all the artistic researchers do, as Guadalupe also, enables combining artistic and scientific thinking on an international level without the threat of losing either artistic identity or the academic relevance. In my case, using playing as a primarily research tool for finding new information, considering French neoclassicism, which is my accurate research topic, serves the both directions, performance work itself and also the musicological field. Also, I have made some interdisciplinary crossings by taking influences from the theories of phenomenological philosophy and applied them with the pianist's way of thinking. For example, my recently published article and video in Art and Research International in Canada goes deep to the ways the pianist perceives intertextual relations in a French neoclassical context. Based on the mind-body related exploring, I have succeeded to create new type of conceptualizations and widen the perspectives French neoclassical music is used to be treated in more traditional contexts. And the next steps in my research will be further developing and analyzing this type of performer-based methodological path. And you were also, what was your second question?
I asked about what was the enabling thing that
Okay.
made you do this, that was made it possible.
Okay, I have 4 categories for those. And I think the first are the personal qualities in a way that you have to have motivation, desire to develop and receive feedback, and you have to have good work ethic and passion, as Guadalupe has also discussed about passion. If you don't have a passion towards the research topic you have, then you will lose the interest and no can do. And maybe the second or the third, I'm not quite sure. Of course, money is very important. If you don't have money, if you don't have funding, or as me, I have the contract for 3 years to be salaried doctoral students. Without that, it would have been impossible to do the research, and the total support and encouragement from my supervisors and from the community. It's very important as well. And then what's the fourth category? Good luck, it says. Okay, thank you.
Okay, now we move to the quicker questions, which are the general cues, and after that, you, the audience, will, I promise you, have also a chance finally to ask something. So, let's go a little bit the quicker round. First question goes to all of you. What is your best advice on the internationalization or mobilization, whatever you want to call it yourself, of doctoral students, especially regarding postdoctoral phase? And some of you have already answered this, it's okay, but if something comes to your mind, please express it again. And since every research is specific, how does this relate to funding? Maybe Tanja wants to start.
I can start. One advice is that as Guadalupe was saying, so it's really much about collaboration and cooperation with researchers and artists. So if somebody is asking you to join a research project, a collaborative thing, so say yes. But say yes if that is a topic that really interests you and you feel passionate about that, as was discussed here. I think that's very important. Saying yes, but saying yes to things that really matters to you and are kind of your passionate topic. So I think that would be one advice.
If I take the funding part, for example, if you go and search the ERC work programs for this year or next year, you will see that there is no specific call for art or cultural or creativity sectors or research. This means that you need to think a bit out of the box. You need to find the interfaces where your research, where your subject could bring some added value to the project. So I would like to see, and this is one of my goals and aims, especially with the universities dealing with these sectors. I would like to see that the arts and creativity and culture would be mainstreamed in the European funding programs, as has now happened, for example, with the SSH research. So yeah, my advice would be think a little bit out of the box, because I think that with your creativity, with the new ways of thinking that you have, you will be able to add something to the research project. You will be able to create innovations which are really needed at the European level at this moment.
Well, first of all, I would advise to not engage 100% with the ethnocentric touch of research, which is quite frequently published internationally in the English language. You must publish in English, of course, but you must also do it in other languages in order to support diversity and also to help the access of a larger amount of readers who can benefit from your research who don't necessarily speak in English or understand that language. I absolutely believe that people have to get out in order to learn about other academic practices and traditions, which, believe it or not, can be very surprising. Even for me, coming from Spain, we are in Europe, you know, but still some things have been really shocking. And this is very important in my process of learning, and also for my PhD students, that they can learn from that as well, whereas this happens in Finland or elsewhere. I can also say as a last point that both when I came to Finland 10 years ago and now going to Australia and the UK, plus having attended conferences abroad, has helped me to work and connect with some of the top international researchers in my fields of expertise, something my collaborators in Finland and elsewhere can benefit from. So this international network actually for both doctoral and postdoctoral students counts when you apply for major funding bodies, because they ask, where have you been, with whom have you been working, and this tells the funding bodies that you have developed organizational and social skills and an open mind to adjust to different scenarios. And I would say that you have so much more resources than we have, for example, in Spain, to what comes to research, but still, as we know how economy is doing or going, you might have to get out, so it's good to open your mind and be ready to collaborate and travel and meet people and understand different practices than your own. So that's from my side.
Okay, well, I think this applies to postdoctoral phase as well. I would advise that when contacting the host institutions, you should be relatively direct about the funding, like ask about the costs and the potential resources they have, and especially about the hidden costs that may involve if you are going to the particular institution. And in some cases, this could be articulated in the funding application itself.
Short comment. I've heard that you can actually ask very practical things also in the Fulbright.
Yes,
For example, will I get a desk as a researcher, and am I part of the research team, or am I just doing my own research? And I guess you have elaborated all these questions.
Yes, exactly.
Quite directly.
Yeah.
Eveliina, you want to say something?
Maybe something from my point of view. When I started the doctoral studies, I was very lucky to be supported with grants when I took part in international conferences from the very beginning, and it was very important, even if I was not quite sure what I was talking about. Anyway, it was, and then I had to ask many complicated questions, and it helped a lot doing the research and go ahead.
Wonderful. One last question, and then we go to audience. Alternative paths. We have talked about when everything goes well and when everything goes according to the plan, more or less, right? But one must keep in mind regarding funding that the individuals are of different areas of specialization, as stated by our specialists today. And this means that if everything doesn't go according to the original plan, what happens then? Do you keep a plan B? And then you could also say, if you have some last practical tips before we take audience questions. Who wants to start? Please. Tanja.
I can start. Because this is funny. I have always had a plan B. I haven't realized that yet. In practice, we'll see. But that has given me kind of trust that perhaps I'm doing okay in the end. So my plan B has been that if nothing else, I will open a small cafeteria somewhere and get my living from that. And it has been kind of an idea in my head for many years. When I was a doctoral student, that was kind of my head. If this doesn't work out, so I will open my cafeteria and I will be happy and all that. So it's kind of confirming kind of an idea that, yeah.
Your practical plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say keep on applying. I know many researchers. One that is the most cited researcher in Finland, who applied for an ERC grant 3 times, and yeah, the 4th time he received it. So as mentioned, the competition is, yes, it's huge, especially for EU funding. But if you are well prepared, and as you said, you write your application well, you put it in the EU framework, the strategic framework, and especially what I would like to advise you to do is that contact your research services at the university, but well beforehand. Pitch your ideas to them. They have all the information necessary for international funding, so go and meet them as well.
Thanks. Well, life is not predictable, so one needs a plan B and a plan C, and you have to be ready to pick up grades for 30 euros a day, working 10 hours with a break, so everything can happen, you know. There are people who have done artistic work, we have some of them here, which I really appreciate, with very little money until funding has come. And there are some who never get it, even if they deserve it. And I have been evaluating some funding from the European Commission, and it's really hard to let go really on projects, so just keep on. There has also been some people who have been obliged to work on research in the spare time, and of course this is naturally slowing down productivity, but still one can do very important work at your own path. So the only problem is that even if you are creative and ready for this kind of alternative plans, at least from my perspective, life becomes really stressful, because every 1, 2 or 4 years things change. You have to apply again while you are doing your current project, and you have to be open because you might be doing something totally different in 3 years, and this is very exhausting. It relates a little bit to the identities, not from the organizational perspective, you know, but the identities of artist researchers who have to navigate in so many different roles if you want to pay your bill, but also follow your passion. So this is exhausting, and if you want to become this kind of researcher, you have to embrace uncertainty in the same way freelance artists do. So, yeah, that's mine.
Sure. Okay, thanks. Well, obviously I had various plan Bs, and these plan Bs were also discussed in the Fulbright interview. So I gave an example of, if I'm not going to have this particular grant, I will apply again, or I will apply from the Finland-American Association or some other association. And what I also did regarding the plan Bs is that I made kind of a risk analysis, what could go wrong, and if I will need more funding, where would I apply for that?
And a little last tip for everyone. Okay, as a pianist and a piano pedagogue, of course I can play on the streets if something bad happens. But of course I can teach piano playing always. So it's my profession far behind me. So always one can do something. And I'm always prepared to do something else as well. So that's not a problem.